Hey, it's Dan, and welcome to Unified Gaming. So in this one, we're going to play Trash or Grab, the game where we check the golden vendor and the other vendors like the Infinite Archive, and decide are they absolute trash or are the items that are worth grabbing. As always, it's worth stressing that this is recorded on the 10th of August, so if you do check the vendors, they will be different as they rotate their stock every single week. The golden vendor being on the weekend, and the other vendors being every Tuesday. As for the golden vendor, where can you find her? The golden vendor is located in Cyrodiil. You can find her in every home keep, so if you're in DC, this is Northern High Rock Gate. If you are over on the Aldmeri Dominion, it's down at the Western Elsewhere Gate. And if you do play on the Ebonheart Pat, you can find her over at the Southern Morrowind Gate. And as I said, her stock does change week by week, so if you are watching this in future, things will be different. With that said, if you want to stay up to date with the series, then do subscribe, as I do cover this every week pretty much, and I give a full breakdown of how you can use this in PvP and PvE. And as always, comments and stuff do help, and just a massive thank you to everyone over at Patreon and on YouTube members who do support to get early access to exclusive content and much more. If you want to support myself and get all that good stuff, there's details down below. As for the golden this week, what do we have for sale? First and foremost, you have Bahara's Curse. This is a tanking set. When you deal damage, you have a 25% chance to create a circle on the ground that snares people. It does a little bit of damage, and it heals you for 100% of the damage done. As a primarily PvP player myself, this is awful. Do not use this in PvP. That said, I do a lot of PvE, I've done trials and all that stuff. This isn't a meta set by any means, but it can be okay on some more just fun builds. So if you're somebody who wants a bit of fun, doing mainly dungeons for example, this is worth considering. It's not the best, but it's quite fun. So it's a bit like Leech and Plate, but with a snare. You then have Nightmare. When you deal martial melee damage, that's anything with swords or basically melee weapons, you apply minor maim to all enemies within 8 meters, reducing the damage, and it has a 3-second cooldown. This is awful. Basically, just do not get this. It's bad in PvP, it's bad in PvE, just skip this. We then have Plague Slinger. Now it's worth noting that this does cost 200,000 gold or 375,000 alliance points, and what that means is that this is a bind on pickup, so this is a dungeon set, and it's also a DLC dungeon set. So just instantly, if you don't have ESO Plus, it's worth considering getting this. If you don't own the dungeon or ESO Plus, do consider buying this. It's really worth considering. What does this item actually do? When you take damage, you summon a Skeever corpse that explodes, doing about 3,000 damage, give or take, and it hits people multiple times. It has an 8-second cooldown. Is this OP? No. But is this good? Yes. You can use this in duels particularly well. It's a really good duel set. If you're doing Cyrodiil, I've had some people suggest many times that if you're doing a tower fight and you're kind of doing a 2vx for example, this ironically can be quite a good set to help counter. So if you backbar this, you can control when it procs, for example, and then you can obviously let the group hit you, have this procking as it's doing damage, and you and your teammate both push in, and you got a lot of extra sustained damage that you wouldn't normally have, and it's also AoE, so this is quite useful. It's worth noting that it shoots 5 of these balls, so times this number by 5, and you get a good idea that this is quite decent. Beyond that, anybody who's mobile and knows what they're doing, they won't die to this set. The next one we have is Sword Singers. This is a set that buffs your weapon damage and spell damage on 2-handed abilities. So if you're playing as a stamina sorcerer 2-hander build, this is pretty good. Beyond that, it's pretty hit and miss. There are better sets in my opinion for PvP. PvE wise, you use a range of dots and stuff and you could make this work again, but there are better sets. As for the monster sets this week, we have Baron Saunders. This applies a status effect, and when you get 10 seconds, when you get up to 3 of these, you then get ult and stuff. It's a support set basically. So the best way to use this is on a healer build or a support build. For PvP, you won't really use this in all honesty. There are just better sets. For PvE, support builds could use this quite well. Healers, off tanks and trials, for example. But again, there are better sets. We then have Lady Magarda, I think it's pronounced. When you deal direct damage to a target within 12 meters, you create a 5 meter area that after 1 second, it quickly moves forward and then returns, dealing 3k damage. It applies Innovation, which causes a target to do 10% less crit damage. This is a really weird set because this whole causing like people to do less crit damage only applies to PvP, which means the main benefit of this debuff is for PvP. But because it's an AoE that moves forward and back, it misses an awful lot. It's also a really small radius. So again, this isn't great. Like in PvP, I'd skip this. And in PvE, well, there's just better monster sets. So this, although it's a DLC set, it's pretty naff in all honesty. So I would skip. So for the golden this week, to the kind of question, are the items worth it? In my opinion, I'd say no. There isn't anything that I'd go, yes, go grab this. It's really good. Apart from Plague Slinger, that is the only thing that I'd suggest getting. It's a fun set for jewels. It's a fun set to use. Is it the best? No, but it's definitely worth considering. The second part of this video is that we jump into the Infinite Archive. So if you're unsure, this is located in Apocrypha. And we then look at what leads are for sale and also are there anything that's really worth considering, particularly the scripts. And then we kind of round the video off by visiting Ferandal and looking at the scripts over in the Scholarium. As always, subscribes, likes and that stuff really helps, and just a massive thanks again to all the support. Once you're inside the Infinite Archive, you need to go to the far east. And here you'll find a trader called Filer All who will be sell just a range of different things. Now this week you have a few leads and you also have the usual cosmetic stuff. First and foremost, I think it's worth focusing on just the scripts because I know this is what a lot of people really look into. And there's one that's really worth getting. If you play as an AoE Elemental Explosion build, so I'm going to show you for example. If you use this skill, Elemental Explosion, which is the big AoE on destruction stuff, it doesn't do a lot of damage. Big tooltip, but there's no like really good way to boost a middle script part of this. I often would use frost damage because I use Winterborn with mine, and would use something like Tarnished Nightmare. But then Assassin's Misery is actually the best damage one out of all of these because Burning, Chilled and Concussed scale with your damage. So the higher you stack your damage, the more these three things do. And that script, Assassin's Misery, procs all three of those instantly or to every single target. The dot is nice, it's 12,000 over 20 seconds, but you only get like the initial hit and then it's slow. Whereas this will hit much harder, it's more burst. I found when I went from the 2, this was a significant like increase in time, like just killing power, going from Lingering to Assassins. So I would definitely get this. If you don't use this skill, then you may want to miss it. It's only really good for this one skill, in my opinion. You can then pair this something like Defile or Brittle of your choice, or Cowardice. So I went with Brittle, and I created this skill, and this is a fantastic use for that script. It's also worth noting that this script is cheaper. It's 4,000 because I know this on one of my characters. So if you are somebody who is playing, you know, lots of characters and stuff, and you want to buy lots of these, buy it once and use it, then buy it on the alts because it's reduced. You'll notice it's about 5 times cheaper. So it's a lot of, you know, the fortunes that you need for this, but it's worth considering. The next one we have is Disease Damage. In my opinion, this isn't worth using. So unless there's massive changes with next patch, which there really isn't, I would skip this. Most skills that you would use Disease aren't good enough as it is. And then the Protection adds Protection buff, which is basically minor protection or major protection. With the scribing system, it's mainly minor protection. The only real use for that, again, is something going for the skills, contingency. You can get protection on these kinds of skills, but it's minor protection. You can get this with Ice Fortress, and you can give it to other people in other ways. People often have this buff nowadays. So I wouldn't rush to get that one, in my opinion. We then have 2 leads this week. So we have the Blending Broomstick. And this is a lead that you can buy here. It's 5,000 fortune, so it's pretty high, like price-wise. And for me personally, anything that's like a furniture and stuff, I don't really get. So I would personally skip this. I know people are like, oh, but any furnishings don't really help. So I would honestly sort of ignore this. And you have the Hunt Lands Blessed Leather. And this is another script lead, sorry, that's also 5,000 again. And this will get you the shadow crow thing, which essentially, while you're crouched, you can see witness and guards through walls. So this is kind of a support set if you're wanting to do a little bit of, you know, pickpocketing, leveling maybe the Laguerre domain skill up, but it's not the best. So I would personally kind of like, this is more for roleplay basically, and this is just furniture. So I would maybe get this if I'm really trying to push Laguerre domain, but there's easy ways, and I've got a video on the channel showing how to do this really fast anyway, so you know, check that out. So yeah, that's kind of the archive this week. Only one really good script in my opinion, and that is the Assassin's Misery. The last place we go to is Ivea. We go to the Scholarium, which is over down here. And do note that you can access this without completing Mage's Guild if you have got high Gold Road and you've also done the introductory quest to scribing. Once inside, we're going to look for the vendor called Ferrandel. He will be selling a range of scripts, but these scripts are essentially based on the things you know. So if you haven't like progressed this enough past the first wing, which is this one, you will not be able to see this vendor. And that includes on Alt's characters, so you do need to complete that at least once, and then complete the introductory quest on Alt's. For this week, he has the following. He has Brittle, Heroism, and Knockback. Brittle, hit and miss in all honesty, it's not like a go-to in my opinion. You then have the Heroism, and then you have the Knockback. Heroism as is like, it's okay, there's better, you can get this quite easily anyway with potions and stuff. Other skills have it like Puncher or Heroic Slash, which is the morph you use. So I wouldn't rush to this either in all honesty. The Knockback is fun. Like, this is really, really fun. So just go into the scribing system again. If you use the Destruction Staff, Elemental Explosion, and you go with Knockback, it knocks enemies back 12 meters. This is really, really, really good. Put on a Hunter Snare, so you knock them back and snare them or immobilize after. And like Defile, Cowardice, whatever you pick, Off Balance, etc. But this is really fun because when you hit somebody, it pushes them back, and if they're on a bridge in Cyrodiil, you can get lots of cheeky kills with this. Like, you can have a whole Zerg ride on the horses and you just chuck this out of the bridge has been weakened, and you can get 4 or 5 kills with just this one skill. It's really, really stupid. So for that one singular use, this is worth getting just for that fun. It is nerfed next patch, just a heads up, but you've got 2 weeks or so before the new patch drops anyway, so it's worth considering. The last one, which I think is a must buy, is Gladiator's Tenacity. This is fantastic. This is what I use on my sorcerer currently. So what does it actually do? Gladiator's Tenacity is a defensive buff, but it's a percent boost. So on my contingency, I use something like healing or damage shield. I use shield personally. And then I would use the Gladiator's Tenacity. Reduces damage taken by 8% for 8 seconds. That is huge. And this applies to allies, which it doesn't show, but I've tested this extensively. So this is fantastic. It's an 8% damage reduction for you and allies. And you can put on anything you like. Protection, so you've got like 8% minor protection, it's 13% damage reduction. It's like ridiculously good. Plus a shield. So this is a really, really, really good skill. You can change the protection to resolve, and this becomes a pseudo vigor. But this, this script, I would buy this on every single character. This is fantastic. It is such a good script. So if you haven't got this, just buy it. Even if you don't think you're going to use it, buy it, because trust me, when you get to using this, you go, this is really, really worth it. I'm glad I got it. And it's only gold. Gold is quite easy to get in this game. So yeah, I'm going to call it here because it's been long enough as it is. I just want to apologise for the slight delay. I normally get this out straight away on Saturday, but life and whatnot. So yeah, apologies for that. I will obviously try and make sure it's up a bit earlier next week. But as always, just a massive thanks to everyone over at Patreon and on YouTube members. It really, really means a lot. And if you are watching this momentarily, I'm about to go live on YouTube, which I stream every week, weekend typically around 9 PM UK. So come say hi. But until the next video or next stream, I'll catch you in the next one. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care. And bye.